Shamangelic Healing Podcast is designed as a platform to share authentic conversations about real life issues, providing you with valuable resources and tools to support you in shining your most authentic self, creating a thriving life that you absolutely love, and to support you in manifesting your soul's mission. Welcome to the Shamangelic Healing Podcast, your high-performance coach and soul guide for empowerment and awakening. Anahata, Ananda. I love that you've tuned in. Today we're serving up delicious self-realization and awakening through the meditation process. And you are going to love my guest today, Chess Edwards, who is a self-realization guide and a meditation coach based right here in Sedona, Arizona. And we cover so many wonderful pearls and tips. You're going to want to stay tuned for the whole thing. And also be sure to check the landing page for the podcast for free gifts and other tips and resources. So definitely check that out. I'm so excited to have him on the show today. You are going to love it. And also another reminder to please like and share, give us rave reviews, because you helping us get the message out is really what helps this mission get wings. I provide the roots here in the show, but you provide the wings in sharing it with others and giving us some rave reviews. And thank you so much for doing that. And a quick announcement, I have just opened enrollment for my certified Quantum Leap high performance coaching. As a certified high performance coach, I really have the tools and the passion and the mission to help people really transform their life one step at a time, creating quantum leaps in their life. And so I have just opened enrollment. It is an application process because I only take a couple people per year that are really, really committed and devoted to really doing the work and committing to taking the steps to really make their life amazing in all areas. We cover relationships, we cover business, we cover health, vitality, meditation, spirituality. And this is for people that are really ready to go big. And if you've had challenges in getting the results that you want and you keep setting goals and falling short, then this is something for you to consider. So I only take a couple people per year. If that's you, then go ahead and check the landing page for that application. I'm so excited for this podcast. You are going to love it. So be sure to check out the links for the free gifts and share it. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Shamangelic Healing Podcast. And today we're exploring self-realization and awakening through meditation with my dear brother and friend, also a Sedona local and amazing practitioner here, Chess Edwards, and we're going to dive into self-inquiry and this whole process. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. It's so nice to be here.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the opportunity, because I appreciate so much of what you do and the aliveness you bring to everything. Right. So I'm honored. Right.
Likewise. We just have so much fun. Our connection is so deep and real and authentic. And I thought, especially with meditation and this process of realizing the self that is beyond the ego that's running everyday life and all of our attachments, you so deeply embody that and practice that and teach that. So let's dive in. Let's play.
Yeah.
Let's laugh and explore this whole interesting topic around self-realization. So what is that? What is that process? What is that in the first place?
Yeah.
Self-realization. Can you explain that?
Yeah, because people hear the words a lot.
Yeah.
I'll ask clients all the time, have you heard of self-realization? Well, yes, I have. Do you know what that means? No, I actually have no idea, and I didn't know either. But you explained it well. There's a larger self, a grander, more eternal self, a different level of consciousness self that is prior to us coming into this mind-body experience, will exist after we're done here. That self is often not realized because we're so busy identified with the self we've created in our mind. A constructed self. And
the constructed self. Yeah. And that constructed self is coming from programs in the mind, beliefs, traumas, external validation, all kinds of different things programming that construct.
The mind needs a self, and it created one because it didn't know the truth of our being when we were toddlers, so it started to create a self based on mom, dad, media, life experiences, and all the assessments it had around each of these instances in our lives.
And feedback. It sounds like there's the authentic self, there's the divine self, like that consciousness of who we are really deeply as a soul, and then there's this constructed, what I keep seeing in my mind's eye is this constructed scaffolding around it that is this construct that isn't really real and kind of confines that authentic self.
Yeah, it's somewhat fun to play with it because I've seen it that way as well. That there is a story of self that is veiling a true nature of being, an essential nature, beautiful divine nature being the soul self. But then I've also flipped it around, and sometimes in the meditations, in the awareness, it's recognizing that there's a small sense of self, and when that is let go, the more essential divine self, which is expansive and vast and indescribable, becomes available.
So what does it look like when you haven't yet connected that to that? You know, what are the symptoms of living that life from more of that construct rather than that fully expanded self?
Right. It's mostly a lot of noise in our heads.
Yeah.
And we don't even recognize it as noise for a long time because it has become so habituated and so normalized. I spent the first 50 years of my life in a pretty deep state of anxiety. So it can look like anxiety, fear, doubt, uncertainty, hesitation, stuckness. They say the first 50 years of childhood are the hardest.
So if you're not yet there, you know, hang in there.
Right, and maybe you get a head start. I had a deep state of anxiety around how am I being perceived. I had enough abuse, betrayal, abandonment when I was young, so that my construct, my conditioned self, the idea I had of me was I needed to make sure that I did everything right to make sure that I wouldn't be abandoned, abused, and betrayed again.
Right. Because then the control starts coming in to protect the part that got wounded.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay. And so with that construct, I know with your clients, with my clients, we see it in lots of different ways. We see it how we're experiencing. It feels like that construct can also look like a lot of drama, a lot of suffering, a lot of, anxiety, addiction, chaos constantly,
not being present,
not being happy. So it can look like depression. It can look like a lot of chaotic relationships, unhappiness with life or with career. It can look like just a general, a
flat
line, like a flat line, and it can look like these big deep grooves. It can look like, oh, I'm not really happy, but I'm not sad. I'm just kind of going through life.
There can be a sense of emptiness,
a
deep sense of emptiness, confusion, overwhelm, and constantly efforting, a lot of efforting.
Oh, that's a great word.
To get life to behave to match my conditioning, to get people to behave to match my conditioning.
Sounds like there's going to come from that place to try to get people to behave. Then there's a lot of control. A lot of trying to control.
You use the word drama.
Yeah.
That's perfect. We talked about this the other day. One of my favorite teachings by Michael Brown, who wrote The Presence Process, is drama occurs when we ask others to give us what we haven't learned to give to ourselves.
Right.
So that's in relationships, but it also happens in life. Drama occurs when I ask life to provide for me what I haven't come to discover I already am. The peace, the joy, the wholeness, the love, the essential nature of the divine self, the divine soul is already those things. But I don't know it. I'm asleep in the conditioned self, which thinks I'll find my peace out there, I'll find the love, I'll find the validation by manipulating and controlling life into so it behaves the way my conditioning wants it to.
To validate who I think I am or what I'm worthy of.
Validate, exactly. Fill that sense of not worthy. Prove once again that I'm a certain person, that I'm a certain image of self. So there's a lot of drama, a lot of efforting. So
those watching and listening, just in case any of that
in case anyone
just
resonates
in case
with that.
anybody,
Yeah.
because you've been through that, I've been through that, we still go through that from time to time of just like going through these unconscious waves.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, right? It's a process. It's a
Yeah.
journey for sure. So what are the benefits then of self-realization? And we're going to get through the process of
Yeah.
how to go through using self-inquiry as a process and meditation as a process to awakening that self under the scaffolding,
Yes.
that true authentic self. So
Yeah.
what are the benefits? Like, why would anybody do that besides not loving pain and suffering?
Imagine being able to meet every circumstance, every condition, every relationship from a place of purified love. Where the triggered self, the conditioned self, is literally emptied. That's the
Well,
benefit.
most of us are looking through that lens. We're looking as the victim. We're looking at the villain. We're looking at life did this to me, you know. And so what I hear you saying is that you're shifting to a different place to look at things.
Yeah, because they switch places to a degree. The predominant knowing is I am my conditioned self. I am the constructed self I've created in my mind, and that is what is trying to get the world to behave. And it's called the dream state. We've dreamed it. We've created it. So we've actually dreamed ourselves into being this image of self. When that starts to dissolve, empty, lessen, relax, surrender,
Stand down, yeah.
that then starts to move into the background because it's still part of us. But then the true nature of who we are, there's a faith that builds in that. There's a knowing, an embodiment of the true soul self. That then becomes what is living the world. Everything comes through and it meets the loving soul first instead of meeting the conditioning and meeting the story that, oh, I got to try to be a better story. I got to try to get rid of that just falls into the background, and the faith of just being embodied as our true nature, that is what lives life.
And I think that's quite a practice, because I think our conditioned self does the responding. Our emotional body, our triggered self, our victim self often reacts and responds so quickly.
Yeah.
And the practice of even moving into that witness consciousness or that altered state, even if the reaction has happened from the ego self and it's quick and it's fast, is to be able to say, okay, that's my wounded inner child, that's my ego speaking, that's my unworthiness speaking, and even if there has been a reaction or a response from that place, is then we can still bring it in at that point that says, oh, okay, let me honor and shift over to this witness. Let me honor that just reacted, and now let me see the bigger picture. Now let me look at how unconditional love would look at this, how my higher, fuller, expanded self can see what else is going on, instead of just looking at the situation through my ego's tiny little straw, thinking that's all there is, when there's so much more.
Exactly. So that more soulful perspective, if you will, the awakened perspective, not only can then look at life and say, okay, well, am I really threatened by this? The true I, the eternal I amness, is that really threatened by this? Oh, that was my conditioning that was threatened. So it can treat the experience with a bit more love and presence, but we're also then meeting our own, like you said, recognizing, yes, that came up. There was still an old echo of habit, an old echo of my conditioning that arose. Can I also hold that with the same love and meet that? And that's the real blessing of this work, is to be able to not deny or push away or say, well, that's just my conditioning, it's not me, but to hold space for it from our most divine nature, and hold space for our shadow to arise, be loved, and reintegrate back into the divine.
Right, and I think that we get to practice learning how to do that for self, because we probably haven't had that experience before.
Right.
We probably haven't been modeled that necessarily 100% of the time.
No, rarely
or
actually.
ever.
Yeah.
To learn how to hold space for ourselves. And in that process, it feels like we're also learning how to hold space for somebody else's scaffolding and their unconsciousness and their reaction, because that's what ours is meeting, is their unconsciousness as well. And so we
Very
get to
much
rise
so.
above and witness, oh, that's their inner child speaking, that's their reacted self, that's their ego being triggered. And so it feels like there's this standing down and calming and centering process.
That's a nice way to put it, yeah.
Of just, okay, and like for me personally, I have to breathe. You know, I have to like, okay, whoa, you know, what is welling up in me? Let me meet it with gentleness.
Right.
And let me also rise above the other person and say, let me meet them with gentleness and compassion, because they're just afraid, and they just don't want to be rejected or abandoned either. Yeah.
And as the awakening embodies, what I find is that my mind is less involved in having to remember, oh, that's just their child self as well. And if I remember that, now I can move into a place of grace or compassion more. Or if somebody says something disparaging about me, from the awakened place, you don't do any there's no more mental remembering, oh, that actually says more about them than it is about me, and they're just projecting that's really valuable tools. But once we're embodied in the divine, it becomes love is just there.
It just becomes more natural. Becomes more the habitual response than the other.
It's the more authentic response.
Yeah. And the constructed one is what is habit. It's what is known, because it's what's been done for decades. It's the only one. And so there is some unraveling of that habit and that and shifting.
Yes.
And it's not overnight. It's not necessarily always going to be there. We get to practice journeying there and letting that be, over time and with practice, the part that responds instead of reacts.
Right. When you asked what are some of the benefits, another huge one is how quiet the mind gets. Because what is happening typically, most of the noise in our mind is, what do I think about you? What do I think about that? What do I think about that? Is that a value to me? Is that a threat to me? Does that please me? Does that displease me? The me that we're referencing is the constructed me. Does that threaten my conditioning? Does that match my conditioning? Does that validate my conditioning? That's the noise. So when that really is in the back seat, it is no longer constantly assessing and interpreting everything relative to the conditioning.
And the fear of, if they don't do this or they don't do that, it also takes you out into the future. What's going to happen, and how is my conditioning going to be threatened?
Yeah.
So it's not just in the moment, it's also, there's a whole bunch of projections that happen with that. They're going to leave me, or that I'm going to fail, so that also takes us out of the now.
Yeah. So I know part of this opportunity is to talk about tips, like what things we can do. When we hear ourselves saying, you know, what is that going to mean for me? What a beautiful opportunity to, like you said, take a breath and say, wait a minute, who is this me I just referenced? Oh, what is this going to do for the constructed me, the conditioned me, the me that I have created in my own mind? That's the one who's worried about this. And when we step back into that witness perspective and rest in that and ask, is this as concerned?
The higher I, the bigger I.
The true I amness, the eternalness of self, looks and goes, no, actually, this is not a concern for me, for the true me. And so what a beautiful thing to watch and go, oh, the I that is angry and upset and just felt betrayed, or just, is that really the true nature of me?
So that's the process. Is there questions, or what, you know, how do you get from the scaffolding and that construct and that ego self, or what have you, over to that witnesser? Is there a process? Is there a question you ask, or like with self-inquiry, what gets you over there for that aspect of self to be the one answering?
What I found is the most fundamental, powerful part of that journey is to get very, 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 very clear on who we're not. To get so clear on the insanity of living a life, navigating a life, being controlled by a self that we've created, by a conditioned, constructed self that we know is full of holes and difficulties and lies about self.
Well, and we're not the only ones that created it, because it's also parents, society, expectations. So it's been a co-creation. Yeah,
but we created it. They contributed, but ultimately it was our own mind that made meaning out of whatever happened. So when we're toddlers, we start to get a sense of I. You see babies looking at their hand. Wow, I think there's a me. There's a mom, a dad, a dog, a houseplant, and I think there seems to be a thing called me. I better figure out what am I, so I get what I want and avoid what I don't want. So that's the ego identity that starts to develop. We don't know the truth of being. So the question is there, what am I? And we don't know at that stage of life, oh, I'm an individuated expression of the one divine consciousness, expressed through my uniquely tuned soul. So the question's still there, what am I? And the only thing we do is, well, let me look at how mom is treating me, how dad is treating me. That starts to give us a little bit of so we're using that as evidence. And whatever we construct, the self that we start to construct, then starts to take everything else in through that construct and assess and interpret through bad programming from the get-go.
Right, the rewards or the scolding that happens based on whether you're doing it right or you did it wrong, whether you're good or bad, all of that. Okay, so one of the questions is that who am I is one of the questions. Who am I?
Who am I really?
Who am I really? Because it's not, oh, I am this gender, I am this parent, or I run this business, or I am this career, so we're looking at the deeper answer.
What is the non-transient aspect of me?
So the timeless, not just this construct of this body, this lifetime. So when you're saying timeless, that means before this first breath here. So
a really good question that I found is if people can ask themselves, one of the first inquiries, so besides being very clear on who we're not, so we get so clear on the insanity of that finally we go, I'm done. Why am I constantly trying to clean up a story to replace it with a better story? If I just stopped telling any story of self, would not the truth of me blossom, bloom, and be able to present itself? So that's the first thing. And then that question of who am I really? One of the questions that's valuable in that is to feel into, do I have a sense that before I came into this current mind-body experience that there was an I that existed? And when I ask that of students, sometimes people go, oh yes. Other times, a lot of times people go, I don't know, I've never really inquired into that. But with that sense of, did I exist? Sometimes that's a hard one. So then we go to the other end. Okay, well, let's make it a little easier. If today you walk out the door and the comet comes out of the sky and wipes you out, this mind-body experience stops, and this current story you're telling of yourself stops, will you still exist? And if there's a sense of yes, then the question is, that eternal essence didn't stop when you came into this life. It didn't say, oh, you're going to have a human life? Great, I'll be in the Bahamas.
Right?
And when you are done having this experience, this form, we'll hook up again. It's here. It's always here. It's what we are. We're just not attentive to it because we're attentive to our story.
And so busy dealing with the challenges or trying to control things or reacting to the messes we've created from that scaffolding, from that construct, or reacting to this person's treating us a certain way, or whatever the stories are that are keeping us engaged in feeding that or in the struggle. And so it sounds like this is the process that requires some stillness and some downtime away from all of those stimulations, away from all of those relationships, away from all of the doing, into
Yeah.
Like taking time, because this is not something that somebody else can necessarily answer for you.
And you won't figure it out in the head.
Right.
Figuring out in the head is just reconstructing the self and creating a new construct of self, a more spiritual construct of self, a more kind construct of self, a more loving construct of self. That's what a lot of the personal development is doing, which is very handy. It's really a valuable step in the process. But ultimately, we may come to a place of saying, wait a minute, that's still a story. What's beyond the story? Like when I stop thinking me, do I disappear? No, there's still a me. So what you're pointing to, Anahata, is that stillness, within the stillness, we might be able to inquire and say, all right, what is the eternal, unchanging nature of being? And we can kind of point awareness out and say there's something that's witnessing, there's something that's eternal, unchanging, that's witnessing the coming and going of all the thoughts of me. The identities of me that I felt great about myself 2 days ago, today not so much. That keeps changing within what eternal, unchanging awareness. So the stillness of meditation gives us the opportunity to actively point our awareness with a bit of intention beyond the construct, the thought self, and say, what is the nature, this is the real question, what is the nature of my isness, of my beingness? It has nothing to do with my story.
Or my emotional trauma, or my victim identification.
Right.
It has nothing to do with that. And
Right.
and how does that, I find it curious as to how that part of me, the bigger I, would interpret and address the stories, you know,
Lovingly.
And it's, of just like, okay, that's sweet that you're still acting like a 3-year-old, you know, or you're still responding, you know, as if you don't matter because somebody else's unconsciousness came forward and you know, you had an experience with someone's unconsciousness and now you're validating that nobody loves you, everybody leaves you, or I'm not enough.
And this unchanging nature is witnessing all that
saying,
coming and going.
Oh, sweetheart, I just feel like it would bring me home.
Yes.
You know, it would be that which I'm seeking in the first place, is to be held, to be seen, to be loved authentically, and to not be left. What I think is really delicious about that aspect of self and that part of self is that it can't abandon us. We're more likely to abandon it, you know. So it doesn't leave, and that is what kind of brings us back to wholeness when we felt there has been abandonment. And it's not going to hurt, and it's not going to hurt us. So it brings us back to that healing place of saying, wow, this is where I'm safe. And oh, I don't have to be somebody else. This aspect of my higher self actually sees me in all of my everything, and loves me anyway, and holds me anyway. And it feels like there's this place we're all yearning for of unconditional love that is found when we meet our higher self, when we meet our soul awakened self, and allow those two to join.
That's the key. It's the side by side. It's the feeling that often comes up is that the love that we are, the divine self, it's like a loving parent that just opens its arms and says to the shadow, to the child self, to the old conditioning, come here, I've got you. And it just embraces. It doesn't try to make it go away. You know, it's often the best thing we can do is just hold the love, so that the fear, the doubt, the uncertainty can be met.
Or the aloneness, or whatever that is. And we probably haven't had that kind of unconditional love modeled. Some might have, at times, had parents that were able to show up in their consciousness and in their compassionate self, and other times when a parent had an agenda, or had, were coming from anger or fear, or trying to control things as well. And so doing their best
as a conditioned, constructed self, not an awakened self.
Right.
To do the best they could.
Right. And I think that's how we evolve the story. You know, that's how, not by stuffing it under the carpet, but of seeing it from another place. Not that it didn't happen, because it certainly did happen. It is truth, and there's a bigger truth that sees how we can embrace it from now, liberated from the trauma and free to create a new reality and a new awareness of self and move forward.
So yeah, there's an interesting thing, the free to create a new...
Yeah.
In this, right? Isn't it fun? Right. It's fun when we look at our languaging it's hard to awaken from the habit of I'm creating a self, I'm creating a better self, I'm creating new thoughts, it's better thoughts, and to let all that rest and have faith. This is for me what faith really is. To keep letting it all go, all the efforting, all the trying, all the thinking about and how to be a better and how to do it right. And when all that goes, who you are cannot not be there. And it's this great, it's a grace that's already present. We don't have to do a whole lot of efforting anymore when we're rested in the grace of being. I want to share the other analogies that can be helpful to people. Is, you said it beautifully, holding them both.
Yeah.
So to be able to let, one analogy is a muddy river and a clear river coming together. The clear river doesn't freak.
Yeah, right.
Oh, the muddy river. It's, no, I'm the clear river, and I will just remain that. And you see from an aerial, you see these two rivers
merging
side by side. One of the most valuable things, and they both get to the ocean anyway. So one of the most valuable things is to hold space and rest, and even a little bit, even a glimmer, when we start to awaken into this rested grace, even if we just have a little glimmer of that, to say, all right, I am that, and now let me feel these old feelings that are, God, man, I've had weeks where they still come on and they're powerful, but I don't believe them anymore. I just experience them staying in love.
Right. And it's still connected. You know, I think one of the challenges with this whole, with the journey of self-realization and awakening is that there can be this, oh, well, I'm not that, and a disassociation to such a point where I'm only this, and the reality is they're still connected. It just depends on which place you're orienting from. And yes, your inner child does still react, and it's like, oh, that's not me. And there is, I've watched at times people kind of disassociate so much from the shadow that they're not really witnessing and honoring. And yes, but I have lessons in that. I get to see what I'm still attached to if I look at my ego instead of, well, that wasn't me, and or that wasn't me, that reacted, that said that thing, that got drunk or whatever. Oh, that wasn't me because I'm the awakened, you know, I'm awakened.
Therefore, I'm going to turn away from it.
Exactly. And so I want to acknowledge that piece, because it can be part of reinforcing the illusion that of not embracing that unconsciousness and becoming a witness to it, and saying, wow, you know, my shadow is my friend. It's not part of me. It is part of me. It's my greatest teacher. And when it shows up and it's the tyrant, or it's the bully, or it's the drama queen, if I meet it from the witness, then I can learn from it. I can bring it home. I can actually integrate it in. I can merge it in. I can see it with self. I can help to evolve its unconsciousness. I can help to dismantle the constructs that are false, and instead of that, it kind of brings more wholeness instead of a disassociation that is actually spiritual bypass. Does it make sense?
Complete sense. There's two things came up around that. One is that in the practice that I'm with these days, is I do no dismantling of any shadow. I just allow it to arise, and I stay in love. And it's just like the light burns through the shadow. There's a beautiful Rumi poem that says, your task is not to seek for love. Your task is simply to seek for and find within you all the barriers you have built against it.
Right.
So you don't have to fight them. You don't even have to knock them down. You just meet them and witness them, and like the parent, love them, and that shadow will release.
Right. And it is the courage to look at it.
And where do we get that courage? From knowing the true being. Yeah. Exactly.
Right. You know, to look at it with compassion and to honor that, okay, that is an aspect that is acting out or acting a certain way or having a certain belief or experiencing a certain reality. And that willingness to move towards it and not deny it, that willingness to face with grace and explore that. This one article I wrote here, you know, I was leading this workshop on 7 tips to cultivating your inner light. And so it was all about the light and all about the light. And so I had a magazine call and say, hey, we'd love to write an article about, you know, we've heard your workshops are great, cultivating your inner light. We're doing the shadow. It's the winter issue and it's on the shadow. And I'm like, click, you know. No, right. My focus is on the light. And it was just like, oh, bugger, you know. And it was just like, wow, there's this whole other side of the equation to bring the light in, to see what obstructs the light. You know, where the shadow shows up, where the tantrum, where the addiction is, where that story is that is actually keeping the light from happening, the light from being embodied, not letting it in because of all of these walls, all of these stories, all of this control, all of this drama and chaos that really is blocking the light. So I love that you said that. Yeah. It's really dissolving what is in the way of love and not reaching for it or controlling it. And that particular article, I called them back and I said, yeah, I'll write it.
Good, yeah.
And the article was, My Shadow is My Friend. And it was like really learning how valuable it is with this self-inquiry process. This is, well, when that reactive self or that, you know, drama, chaotic, you know, victim self is you know, expressing triggered, right now. Triggered, unhappy, and throwing a tantrum. And there's many ways that looks. Is like how to say that it only shows up when it wants me to look at something. It only shows up when it wants me to hear it, where it wants to learn, where it wants to heal, where
it wants to be loved.
Yeah, it wants to be loved. It's in a pattern. It's stuck. It wants a new tool. It wants to evolve. It wants to grow. It wants to change, and it's throwing a tantrum because I'm not paying attention. It's throwing a tantrum because I'm ignoring the signals of that. And when that higher conscious, beautiful self meets that, you know, shadow self with grace and compassion and understanding, it allows those things that are in the way to dissolve and evolve in a very sweet, beautiful. I love this idea of the rivers merging.
There's not a lot of effort in it.
It's a softening, really.
Oh, it's a huge softening. Yeah. There's one way to look at it is if we're acknowledging, if we recognize that there is a dreamed self that we've constructed, worthy, unworthy, lovable, not lovable, you know, all these variations and vagaries of the image of self that we've created. If we look at that through the analogy of that being a dreamed self, when you wake up from a dream in the morning, let's say you go to sleep at night, you have a dream at night. When you wake up from the dream, and in the dream you're like, man, I was being chased by a tiger.
Yeah, right.
And while I was in the dream, it was
real,
100% real, right? But then we wake up and we go, oh, I think I'll go have my day.
Yeah.
Now I'm awake into my day. What typically happens to the dream?
Yeah, it dissolves.
It dissolves. With the dissolving of the dream go the feelings that were a part of the dream. The fear of being chased by the tiger also go when the dream goes.
Because in that place when we're awakening, we're realizing, oh, that wasn't real.
We're not just realizing,
it wasn't real.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I can relax and stand down now. So is that the same process when we're going into this meditation with self-inquiry of saying, oh, the way I'm perceiving it actually isn't really real. There's a much bigger perspective to that experience.
Yeah, there's when the true divine nature. See, what awakening really is consciousness awakening to itself within the human experience. So when one is, as a human, is moving through life and saying there's been an awakening, what it is saying, actually unconditional loving awareness is now awakened within me. And therefore the me that I had constructed has stepped aside. And now that unconditional loving awareness can live through me. You can call it God consciousness. Like God gets to live through this divine, perfectly tuned soul. And the story was what was getting in the way. So when, in this analogy, when that awakens, truly what you have been dreaming yourself to be, just like you wake in the morning, that dream fades. And you don't have to do a whole lot of work around deconstructing a whole lot any more than you would. Well, let me wrestle with that dream that I had.
So let's talk about how meditation is a process to bridge this, because it doesn't necessarily happen while we're driving in a car. It doesn't happen when we're in a board meeting. It doesn't happen around the dinner table typically. You know, there's this process of kind of stepping back, getting still. And I remember when I first started exploring meditation, it took me a while to figure out how to sit, first of all, to just sit down. Have been very hyper, very busy, you know, and a lot of my clients that have you know, ADHD or, PTSD just have difficulty sitting still physically. And this is the whole practice of yoga is why all of these asanas and in yoga postures were just to actually, you know, move circulation in all the joints so that you could physically sit without this ache or pain pulling you out of that stillness. And there's certain techniques to quiet and calm the mind, or to just, you know, access another state of stillness. There are different breathing techniques, and so I want to talk about that a little bit, because when I first kind of got over learning how to sit still, because that was a thing.
That's the first part.
That was a thing, I must say. You know, and I'm sure people watching and listening are also feeling that as well. It's like, well, I can't sit still. Like, it drives me nuts. You know, so one, how to sit still, and two, how to sit in stillness here, how to sit physically still, and how to sit in stillness. And when I got over those two things and then learned a couple techniques, the bliss, Chess, like that I was able to access was like nothing I have experienced in my human at all, like reality, like that. Finally accessing a sense of grace, a sense of peace, a sense of, like it just the quietness, the beauty, the stillness, the love, the peace. Like my nervous system got replenished and recentered, and it was so delicious, and I got hooked because it was a feeling oh my God, I came home. And it just, like, my third eye opened, my crown opened, my heart opened, and like everything that was kind of more anxious just softened. And so what are some tips about how to sit, how to get still, first of all, in the physical body, and how to get still in like the mental body?
The paradox, of course, is that the one we're trying to relax from is the one who doesn't want to sit. Right? It's the one who's saying, I've got stuff to do.
I don't have time for that.
George Balanchine, the choreographer, has a wonderful quote that says, rest is a phase of movement. To allow that, so part of the answer to that is to give the anxious self that says, I don't have time because I need to satisfy my conditioning in the world.
I have to be busy.
You kind of let it know, this will satisfy some of your conditioning. This will help get you what you want. So it's still talking to the constructed self. Little trick. So the other part of it is to recognize that meditation is not necessarily to feel the peace and the joy and the silence. Meditation is an opportunity to meet the noise and the anxiousness and the story, and be able to witness it a bit more. So people get frustrated. I sat for like 15 minutes. My monkey mind never shut up. That was not a successful meditation. No, that was a beautiful meditation.
If you're meeting that with that witness.
Yeah, and even as you're struggling to meet it as the witness, to have a meditation where you sit and you go, that was hell. For the last 15 minutes, that was hell. Good. So you got to meet the hell that's going on
all the time.
within
You just got to see it finally.
Exactly. So there's a wonderful teaching in meditation that says it's not about emptying the mind of thoughts, because that's hellish. Right? That's a struggle. I can't get rid of them. I can't get rid of them. I'm going to work harder to get rid of them. Oh, now I really can't get rid of them.
Which is quite effortful.
Now I'm having a lot of thoughts about how hard it is to get rid of my thoughts.
And I'm all anxious now.
Now I'm all anxious. And what does this mean? I'm a bad meditator, and now I've got more thoughts.
I'm never going to do this again.
So it's not about emptying the mind of thoughts. It's about recognizing that all thoughts are empty. They are thoughts. What are thoughts? Chemical reactions bubbling up out of the previous thoughts, out of the previous thoughts, out of the previous thoughts. So to allow them, notice them, and go, yep, here they are. But when I can see them as empty, I don't abide them so much. Yeah. It'd be like if you were walking through Central Park and a crazy person came up to you and said, squirrels are taking over the world. You probably wouldn't turn to them and go, oh my God.
Right. You don't feed it. You don't anchor it.
You would just go, well, that's curious. And you'd go on.
Right. You just kind of witness that. One of my meditation teachers would just say, hey, you know, like when a balloon floats up up into the atmosphere, you just kind of let it go. You don't have to grab it and pull it back down. Just let that thought rise, or like a cloud moving across the sky. You don't have to bring it down into your reality. You don't have to energize it. You don't have to add emotion to it. Just like, oh, there's a thought that I have to do that thing this afternoon. And you just let it move by, but not engage it of like, oh, well, what else do I need to do this afternoon? Now I've engaged it. I've become having a conversation with it. Instead of just witness it, let it move by, and then I move back.
Why are you engaging with something that's bubbling up out of your own construct, your own conditioning? I call it being the sky. Clouds come, clouds go. The sky doesn't change.
Yeah, it doesn't have a story about it.
It doesn't have a story about it. Storm comes, hurricane comes, sky never has a story about it.
Yeah, so that's good.
There's another tip here, and this one's hard. This one's hard, but it's so valuable. When one is coming, you can do it anytime, but it's easier coming out of a meditation. As you open your eyes, the practice is look around at the world around you and don't name anything. Don't name it good, bad, beautiful, lovely, I like it, rock, sky.
Colors,
Nothing. Just to be with life. It's unconditional presence, just to practice being with life. When I first tried that, I could hold it for about 3 seconds. And it was fascinating to watch and then go, what was that just needed to name that? Oh, that was my conditioned self saying, how does that relate to me? What do I think about that? Is that a value to me? And even not to name things beautiful.
Right. So witnessing that is so valuable into just witnessing how the attachment to name something. One of the other things that I think really helps me quiet the mind is like a breath of fire, or kapalabhati. The yogis call it skull shining breath. And so before I go to the pillow, in that space, is just let me clear the mind with some oxygen. Let me, because the thoughts are going, and if I'm breathing, I'm too busy for the thoughts. I'm too focused on the breath and the breathing, and so it kind of clears the minds of thoughts for a moment. And in that, just kapalabhati, breath of fire, skull shining breath, actually, I start into my meditation from a place of kind of calmer, more stillness, so that it's not like I'm going into all these things I have to do. Okay, now I got to meditate and I got to sit. And so it is this little bridge that helps me calm the mind. It's that little bridge. And sometimes just putting earplugs or putting a little eye pillow to help, keep me from the external stimulation of visual or auditory that is then I'm gonna attach. Oh, there's a squirrel, there's a barking dog, oh, there's the mailman, and it takes me right out of it. And so sometimes I do that kind of pratyahara, which is to like withdraw the senses as best I can, because that's my way of interfacing and interacting with reality. And so as soon as I get a stimulation, I'm going to have a story and a reaction about it. And so the breathing helps me to calm the mind, you know, putting an eye shades on and putting earplugs in, just to kind of withdraw the senses from the external world, so that I can begin to sit with the stillness and feel that presence of the larger I am consciousness that isn't having such stimulation.
Very much so. The other primary tool that can be used in this meditation of inquiry is to actually have a sense of what the heck I'm doing in a meditation. A lot of people sit, I guess I'm just trying to be quiet, I guess I'm just trying to be still. But to point our awareness, we have the ability to gather in our awareness from the world, from the construct, from the conditioning, from the story, to gather it in and then gently point it to the truth of self. So one of the techniques that one can use is, when they sit, to literally point awareness to a body part. So, okay, point awareness to the left elbow. And sure enough, you go, oh, I just noticed, indeed, I have a left elbow. Point awareness to the right ear. Oh, wow, I've got a right ear. Oh, but the left elbow kind of went away. Point awareness to both the right ear and the left elbow at the same time. Oh, wow, I can actually do that. I can point my awareness where I want. So the pointing of awareness is the deepest part of a meditation of inquiry, because what we're doing is ultimately we're taking that same awareness. Like if I say point your awareness to your left foot, you become aware, I have a left foot, right? You didn't just grow a left foot, did you? Right. And that's fascinating to go, I didn't just grow a left foot, therefore I'm now going to point an awareness within and notice that there is something as well that I will discover that doesn't come and go, just like the left foot doesn't come and go. It's only a matter of whether I'm pointing my awareness to the eternal nature of being or not.
What I love about that technique, and I love that you did that, because I will use that, and I think it's one of the things that we are practicing in meditation to become aware of. Where am I placing my awareness? What am I focusing on? Am I focusing on the story that they did this thing?
And who's I'm the doing victim? The focusing?
And then we get to see, oh, what am I energizing? Because that will grow. And is my awareness, am I coming from the right place? You know, what place am I coming from? And what I enjoy about that is that it puts you back in the driver's seat when you're not, when you get to practice refocusing back to that place of awareness where you want your attention to be. And so like, oh, I grabbed onto the to-do in awareness, and that practice of coming back, that practice of recentering, that practice of being in control and directing your awareness where you want it to go.
Instead of having it be completely consumed by the story of self.
And completely not in my control. And when in that practice, what I'm hearing is that you get to also be aware of how you are in the driver's seat of your awareness. And when it goes somewhere you don't want it to go, not just in meditation, but in life, that's to me the power of this work, is that I also get to bring it back to a place of awareness and consciousness in that moment. And we practice it in meditation. We practice it. We practice it in a place where there's nothing to lose. There's no one here. I'm easier. There's nothing at stake. And I get to practice flexing that muscle of shifting my awareness off of the story, off of the victim, back to truth, back to the witness, back to consciousness. And that's the juice. I think that is really, because then in everyday life, I get to do the same thing. Oh, who is responding right now? What am I giving my attention and awareness? Where am I giving my power?
And pull the attention, pull it back.
Yeah, exactly. That to me is where it gets really exciting, because no matter what state I'm in, no matter what situation I'm in, or anybody that's listening, no matter what's happening, whether you're just cut off, you know, on the freeway, whether you somebody just said something really hurtful publicly, you've just been, you know, publicly shamed, or whatever it is, or you've just had a big loss in your business, or there's a breakup, we get to bring that awareness and that witness that is cultivated in this kind of meditation to everyday life.
It's awakened. I call it like if you had an ember, if you're starting a campfire and you have an ember of truth, an ember of, oh, that's my true nature, but it's
Yeah.
been so hidden and covered. Every meditation is an opportunity to
Yeah, right.
blow
Over and
on
over
it.
and over
And if
again.
we stop, it
dies
dies
out.
out. But if you do that long enough, it grows into such a flame
Right.
that it maintains itself, actually.
Right. And this is where we get to flex that muscle in meditation. So it's not just, calming the nervous system. There's all kinds of different types of meditation, and there's all kinds of different benefits from just sitting
But this
still.
is the meditation of self-inquiry.
Right.
Yeah.
This is one way
Yes.
of meditating, and I love it. I kind of use all different. I use lots of types of meditation
For
different things.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just okay. I just want stillness, and sometimes I want to be in that place of connecting to divine guidance and being receptive and open. And sometimes I'm in this co-creation with the universe, kind of imagining and dreaming and feeling, that juicy expansion in what it can look and feel like. And I love this also place of just watching and witnessing and coming back and coming back and coming back. And when you flex that muscle enough, it gets stronger. It becomes more often what responds than the other thing that reacts.
Just like when we awaken from the dream at night, when we're awake, of course, now I'm awake. Why would I want to keep being in the dream?
Right.
But it's like being, if you're in a deep, 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 deep sleep and somebody pokes you once, you may awaken for a moment. It's like being in a meditation and having oh my God, this is beautiful.
You go back.
I mean, it really takes a lot of, if you've been asleep for lifetimes, it takes a lot of poking to finally go, wow, I'm actually now maintaining an awakefulness of my true essence. I don't even have to think about it anymore.
And even if that's just fleeting, once you've tasted it, you can't go back. Like once you've tasted it, even if it's just like, oh wow, that exists, and now I went back into my sleep
There's
thing.
now a part of you
that
in
knows.
the dream that goes, wait a minute,
There's
more. Something else.
This is the whole journey of the lotus, like, that is in the darkness, that is in the shadow, but it knows it's something more. That's what you were talking about, the faith, the faith of that reaching for light and truth. It says, I'm more than just this like thing stuck in the mud, in the bottom of a murky lake. I am much more than that, and we have to have that faith, and that's what brings the seed awakening. It's what allows the lotus in dark, murky water to keep reaching for more. Like, wow, this is clearer than that mud, and then as it awakens enlightenment, that lotus is that image of like, oh wow. And when we pop out of the water and realize, oh, there's so much more, and we haven't even opened the petals yet.
Yeah.
And it's like all of these petals, and that is that lotus. The journey of the lotus is that journey of enlightenment and awakening for all of us.
All of us. And then to watch the conditioned self not want to let go.
Yeah, it's funny.
And one of the main things it
humorous.
says is, how will you make choices? How will you set boundaries?
Yeah.
Will you make decisions? How will you be guided?
Yeah.
If you don't have the desires of the conditioned self and the drive from, I need this and I need that and that's got to be like, without that, how would you navigate life?
Right.
And the best answer I've been able to feel into is more authentically than you've ever navigated life before. Because you're actually now navigating from your true soul's desires and your soul's tunings instead of your conditionings, conditions.
More free, more authentic, more joyful, more real.
It's you.
Yeah. Which is where the juice of life is. That's why we came, is to awaken and to look at all of these human experiences and to find humor. I just find it humorous. When I'm attaching, when I'm falling, when I'm reacting, my witnesser's quite humorous. Like, oh, look how cute that is.
Curiosity and humor is so
like,
key,
oh
right?
gosh, I'm still having that
look at
story.
my-
Like, that is
check
just adorable.
out my
That little
conditioning.
tantrum at this
Exactly.
age. And so I think that's where the freedom comes from. And once that little pearl of awakening happens, you can't go back you can't go back small again. And
No.
the soul, you've connected to that part of you that knows the higher truth.
And it says, sorry.
Sorry.
You got my attention.
Right.
Right.
And in that, for those that are struggling with the addiction, then we get to, who is the one that is addicted and why?
Yeah.
Who is the one that keeps attracting this unhealthy relationship and why? And so the witness, the questioning can go, why is there this lack of abundance? Who is that is still having struggling with finances, and why? And I think it's so liberating, this work.
Oh, because like you said,
the
detachment, which isn't it isn't the spiritual bypass.
No.
It's just saying, truly, that isn't my eternal nature.
Right.
It is a part of my human experience.
So what's in the way?
But it's not my eternal nature, and I can start to relax that and let that go.
Which is so cool, because all the clues are there in looking at that, in feeling that, in facing that. All of the clues and what is in the way of is just wanting and waiting to be dissolved. And there's so many ways to do that. You and I both run full-time practices here in Sedona to kind of support people through their process of awakening and transformation, because we just love doing that. And so please tell everybody, because I've loved this conversation. I know people are going to want more. So will you tell everybody where they can find you, my dear?
Yeah. You can, very simple, you can find me at my website, chessedwards.com, and it's CHESS, Edwards.com. And through there, you can reach out and book a discovery session with me and have a conversation around, is this of value to you, the way that I guide and what I offer. I lead retreats here in Sedona. I also travel. I also go to communities and provide satsang, provide retreats for groups of friends and family that will come together and want to have a morning or an evening or a couple of days of this type of experience.
Yeah.
So really the best way is through the website, chessedwards.com.
And you have a gift for our audience. Tell us about that, because it's juicy and you're going to want this.
So it's called the Powerful Living Toolkit, and it's a series of 3 things. So if you provide your name and email at the website, it kicks back to you an email with links to, one is a PDF that is an alkaline and acid food chart.
Oh, fantastic.
So it's really fun. People can actually chart what foods are providing more alkaline in my life, what foods are providing more acid. Then the other is a life balance wheel. So being able to look at our life in 8 different segments and a whole series of questions that goes along with it. So we can plot and assess our own, where am I in my spiritual development? Where am I in my personal relationships, etc. So it's a life balance wheel. And the last part of that is a link to some guided meditations. And it's a password protected site, so you get the password and the link. And the most powerful meditation there is called the Powerful Truth of You. And that's the meditation that goes deepest into this. What happens when I stop thinking of me? Wow, I still exist. I exist without a thought of me. What is that?
Right.
And that's the meditation that guides you to that.
Fantastic. Oh my gosh, that is such a delicious, wonderful free gift. So we are going to have in the show notes for sure. Go check that out. Make sure to go onto the landing page for the podcast. We'll have it in the podcast notes. You're definitely going to want to sign up for that and get that free gift. You can find me here at shamangelichealing.com. This is my passion and mission, to provide people through these kinds of journeys of really discovering who you are outside of all of the story, and providing deep, expansive tools to really help you awaken to your fullest potential. Come to Sedona, get sessions with Chess and with me, and that's the dream team combo.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun.
Right? Yeah. I know.
Transformation.
Yeah, exactly.
Off the
oh, you're going to come
chain.
see me, then you're going to go see Chess, you're going to come back and see me, and then go see Chess again. Okay, that sounds like a dream weekend. So, so definitely come and explore that. I would love to give you also a free gift. a guided visualization to awaken consciousness to your fullest, most radiant potential. And so this is kind of a guided visualization into that place of expanded self. So I want to give that to you for free, and half off my meditation course, which is just some wonderful little tips about how to deepen your meditation practice, how to sit still longer, and how to go into those deeper states of stillness. So I want to give you half off that meditation course. And just a reminder that the Quantum Leap High Performance Coaching, I'm only taking a couple applications. You know, there's an application process, and I'm only taking a couple people to do deep one-on-one counseling and coaching with that is really life transformative. It's my passion to really help people through that process. This is for people only that really want to go deep and real and are committed. So that's why there's an application process. I only take a couple per year. So if you want to do that, definitely follow the link in the bio in the show notes. And so thank you, Chess, my dear brother.
What a blessing.
This is such a blessing, and I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing and everything that you've experienced to bring you to this place, to bring you to Sedona, to bring you to this work. And really, really appreciate everything that you shared with our audience today.
Thank you, my dear. And you too. Your courage, your devotion is incredible. And it just keeps opening up your own world, and you share that with others, and you're just doing nothing but opening up love, up love everywhere you go, and I so appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. That's what Anahata, that's the mission. That's what we do. So we want to thank you so much for listening and watching. Please like it, share it, subscribe, give us a rave review. This is how we get the message out to others. If you found something really valuable and insightful about our conversation, you're the one that helps us get the word out, because we're just going to have this conversation anyway. We have these chats and dinners and hikes all the time, but our intention to sit with you with clear, grounded, commitment to get this work out, these ideas out to more people. That's where you help us do that. So thank you so much. We always value and honor your time for tuning in. So have an incredible day. We know that you are much more than this construct. And so have a beautiful journey in discovering that I am presence that is the creator, that is creating your reality and your most abundant, radiant self. So thank you so much for tuning into the Shamangelic Healing Podcast. Have an incredible day.
Blessings.
Blessings.